Hey guys, what's up? Today I'll be testing a complementary headphone amplifier to the topping D30 Pro DAC that I reviewed not too long ago. It uses 10 op-amps in parallel and of course the same nested feedback composite amplifier topology that topping predefined not too long ago. It's called topping A30 Pro headphone amplifier. It goes for $350 and there are a lot of great and not so great things to say about it, so let's check it out. A30 Pro looks like a mini version of the A90 amplifier. It has the same CNC machined aluminum enclosure, the same thickness, the same matte finish, with a lot of holes on top and under the unit. Plus 4 wider openings can be spotted on its sides. Those 10 op-amps are building lots of heat, hence putting so many holes on all sides. I think it looks modern and cool, especially when you put a D30 Pro under it. With a net weight of 870 grams, I find it lightweight and small enough to be carried to your office and back home. As for controls, it has a simple front panel with 2 switches located on its left. The first one lets you choose its RCA XLR input, or it goes to standby mode. And the next one changes the gain from low to medium to high. A30 Pro is impressive when it comes to headphone outputs, so you are getting a regular headphone jack and 2 balanced outputs coming in 4-pin XLR and 4.4mm flavors. It has single-ended RCA and balanced XLR inputs on its back, plus a pair of RCA and 1/4-inch mono jacks used as pass-through. Please don't confuse them with preamp outputs, as A30 Pro cannot work as a preamp. For the first time ever in Topping's portfolio, I'm seeing a ground and lift switch. If you are not having ground loop issues, leave it at ground, otherwise switch it to lift to change the ground point from its chassis to the digital or analog source that is being connected to it. As for the tech inside it, A30 Pro is based on the popular NFCA circuitry that is being used in their A90, L30 and A50S. Instead of 4 TPA chips they put in A90, they used 10 OPA 1656 op-amps in parallel for an outstanding single-ended performance. They achieved 6 watts of power in 16 ohms on all its headphone outputs, meaning that A30 Pro isn't exactly a true balanced amplifier from input to output. Other than that, the channel crosstalks seems to be the same on all headphone outputs, strengthening the fact that it's a single-ended amplifier with balanced inputs and outputs. With a 0.1 ohm output impedance on all headphone jacks, you can be sure that it will preserve all the damping factor for a great transit response and diaphragm control. So how does the little brother to the mighty A90 is sounding? In a few words, it is extremely transparent, so very clean sounding, very detailed sounding, really fast and really punchy sounding, very extended in the frequency response and absolutely noiseless in its performance when some sensitive loads are being used as IEMs. It was really achromatic and colorless in its presentation, so it was linear, it was neutral, fully preserving the character of the source that is being connected to it. So it can be smooth, it can be liquid sounding when AudioBite HydraVox is connected to it. It can be extremely precise, very detailed when Matrix Audio Element X was connected to it, or super powerful, super punchy, a little bit aggressive when Gustard X26 Pro was attached to it. If it feels that I'm describing the sound of topping A90, that is because A30 Pro does indeed sound like a mini version of the A90. Well, I find it quite layered, so having a pretty good soundstage, a pretty nice depth actually. It will not outperform the A90 when it comes to soundstage size. That one was bigger sounding, especially when balanced inputs and outputs are being used. That is actually the biggest drawback of the little A30 Pro, because it didn't sound super wide, super big, let's say so. I was very surprised by its power output. So it could easily drive even planar Mafia headphones like this one on mid gain, mind you. So high gain was used only with 2 headphones, and that is quite amazing. So it has a lot of power under its belt. A few years ago, I would be describing a $2,000 amplifier, but I'm so glad having so much performance and so much power at only $350. While the Singster SA1 was a better amplifier when it comes to natural textures and treble rendition, I find the little A30 Pro a punchier amplifier that doesn't have a problem sustaining a longer bass note, striving for a more engaging presentation. In terms of noise floor, with just 0.7 microvolts of noise on its low and mid gain and 1.1 microvolts of noise on its high gain on maximum volume, topping A30 Pro has one of the lowest noise floors that was recorded with headphone amplifiers. So I'm putting it in the same boat with toppings A90, with Benchmark HPA4, with SMSL SP400, with Sparkov's Last Aries, and with others. So this is indeed world-class performance, and of course when I've connected my most sensitive IEMs that I have via 4.4 balanced, via its low gain, via its mid gain, on maximum volume, I couldn't spot nothing, so just a pitch black background, a noiseless performance like the amplifier is just turned off. Only when I went on high gain and past 12 o'clock position there was a little bit of residual noise, but not too much, just a little. At normal listening levels, you can easily use the highest sensitivity IEMs, even on high gain if you please, so you would never hear any disturbing hisses or noises, making it an extremely IEM-friendly amplifier. As for power output, with 6 watts of power under 16 ohms, as you can imagine, it can drive pretty much anything, no matter what. So, be them multi-driver IEMs, be them portable over-ear headphones, be them desktop dynamic headphones, be them planar Mafia headphones, it fully drove all of them with a lot of power to spare actually. So I've used only high gain only with Odyssey LCD4. Everything else was used on mid gain, even Hi-Fi-Man HE1000. So of course, as you can imagine, dynamics were going up and down, so those were to die for. It has a great control of the drivers. It was going really fast, it was punchy, it was hard slamming in the bass, so I had all the signs of a well-driven headphone. There was just one stubborn headphone that didn't want to hit the dance floor, and that was the Hi-Fi-Man Susvara. I went high gain, close to maximum volume, and still it didn't want to dance. So it was just slowing down. Its bass was, there was no bass at all actually. So it was slow, it was boring, it was not as visceral. It didn't work with Hi-Fi-Man Susvara, but it worked with everything else. So yeah, that's a lot of power. In terms of detail retrieval, I'm extremely happy experiencing a very high level of detail retrieval, a very high transparency, a really nice see-through, so I can look to my tracks and hear all those small nuances, no problem. It revealed huge amounts of information from the tracks pretty easily. And in this regard, I think that it sounds pretty much as their A90, A50S, and L30 headphone amplifiers. So A30 Pro is really up there with the best when it comes to these things like transparency and detail retrieval. So with a total harmonic distortion of 0.00007%, it is really up there with the topping A90, removing it completely out of the picture when music starts playing. So when you listen to music with A30 Pro, you just feel that it takes a few steps sideways and just let your music flow directly into your brain without intervening too much and without changing the character of your source. So if you have a smooth sounding source, if you have a punchy sounding source, a very detailed sounding source, it will sound exactly like that. A30 Pro is as achromatic, as linear, and as extended in the frequency response as solid-state amplifiers could ever be, and that makes it an absolute steal if you love your music uncolored and untouched. As for Transients, A30 Pro revealed itself as a really fast, agile, punchy, hard slamming amplifier, even from the first seconds of pressing play. So with a close to zero output impedance and with a a very high power output, a very high dynamic range under its belt. It just wants to press down that gas pedal to the floor. It wants to go fast. There is nothing stopping by this wild Mustang. So when you move those noise levels to subatomic levels, when you raise sky high that dynamic range, it would be just natural experiencing a lightning fast start and stop of the drivers, an exact timing, and of course decay of the musical notes. I personally don't hold a lot of respect for slow amplifiers that are slowing down my headphones or my loudspeakers. Luckily, A30 Pro isn't that kind of amplifier, so it just wants to go fast, it wants to punch hard, and that is its nature. And I'm glad that it walks the same path paved by its bigger brother A90. Only Hi-Fi Susvara refused to hit the dance floor, but anything else fully preserved the pace, rhythm and timing of the music. As for the Soundstage, it delivered a decent amount of air in my music. It didn't artificially enhance the stage size, as it might happen with some tube-based amplifiers. It had a very precise pinpoint location of all the notes around the listener, even in crowded tracks. But it wasn't that impressive in this department, so it sounded just a little bit closed in, just a little bit more intimate compared to their A90 amplifier, for example. So it has a good to almost great soundstage size, but this is really the biggest complaint that I have with this unit. So it was neither too big, neither closed in sounding, somewhere in between, offering just an above average soundstage size. It will not push huge quantities of air, and this is where it could be easily outperformed by some true balanced amplifiers that have a lower channel crosstalk and a bigger channel separation. On the other hand, I think that entry to mid-level THX amplifiers performed pretty much the same, so it isn't really a huge con for me. On the plus side, its soulmate D30 Pro has 4 DAC chips inside, providing an excellent channel separation, and that works as a soundstage boost for the A30 Pro, working as ink to the A30 Pro's yang. Moving on to frequency response, sub-bass went low in a very tight, impactful way, so it was snappy, it was highly engaging, it had a decent amount of air down low, but sadly due to a smaller scale, some of the bass layers just cascaded on top of each other, creating an illusion that there is just less air traveling around in the bass. It's still a linear type of amplifier, so of course expect bass notes only when those are called for. This is not a bass-heavy amplifier. Still, my electronic music collection sounded really impressive thanks to its ride fast and die young personality, pumping good vibes and positive emotions. As for mid-range, you won't find a lot of warmth in here, you won't find a lot of smoothness, you won't find natural overtones, you won't find a lot of saturation and density. Sadly, NFC amplifiers like this one don't have that. Still, there was just a little bit more naturalness compared to THX counterparts, so just expect some deeper, more believable voices that carry their weight, that have just the right pitch, let's say so. So there was grunt with male voices, there was refinement with female voices, and there was a longer vibration with musical instruments. I could almost feel the wood of that cello, of that violin, of that guitar, and so on. This is good mid-range performance that is linear, but without becoming boring or emotionless. Treble is highly detailed, it is a little bit elevated, it's a little bit highlighted, but it was never bright or harsh sounding at all. It went sky high, even past top octave, so past 16 kHz, especially with Hi-Fi headphones. So it was going for a clean, undistorted performance with very defined leading edges, very clean contours. So if you love your trebles really clean, very extended but undistorted, I think that this amplifier is definitely for you. I'm reminding you that it's extended in here, so it might pose a small problem with bright sounding DACs or headphones. For a perfect match, you'll need a warmer digital or analog source. As for my conclusions, I can nitpick about its limited depth and soundstage size, about its limited channel crosstalk, about its single-ended only design, and this is where all my complaints would see a full stop. As you can see, it's really small, it's lightweight, it has a surface area slightly bigger to a modern smartphone, But it was a fully driving wall of headphones, and that is kind of impressive. It was dead silent with IEMs, and its clean and transparent nature makes it a perfect match with a wide variety of headphones. And considering the price point that Topping went with this unit, A30 Pro receives my stamp of approval as being an honest sounding amplifier at a very attractive price point. Okay guys, my full in-depth review can be found on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it, and as usual, listen to my music, be positive, and I'll see you next time. Cheers, bye bye.